This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
He's Greg, I'm Nick. The Patriots are on the practice field, folks. Training camp has begun. The Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles is brought to you by Athletic Greens, the all-in-one nutritional insurance for your body that has over 7,000 five-star reviews. Well, Greg, the Patriots were out there. You were there at Foxborough this morning, taking in all the action. Let's start. Matt Patricia, I heard he was on some kind of walkie-talkie. What did you see from the coaching staff today?
Yeah, I don't know if it was all that different, Nick, than what we saw in OTAs, but, you know, maybe a little bit. I mean, my sense was, look, early on in practice, Matt Patricia was very involved with Mac Jones and the quarterbacks. Then he sort of went off into the corner with the offensive line when it was more individual stuff, and Joe Judge took care of that. But the last half of practice, when there was a lot of team going on and the offensive line was part of it, it was all Matt Patricia calling the plays. I mean, to me, it felt like Matt Patricia is clearly in control of the offense. And Joe Judge, this was sort of the first time where I was like, Joe Judge is just kind of the quarterback's coach. That's how it felt today. You know, sometimes Matt Patricia was relaying the plays into the quarterbacks just, you know, through their ear hole. Later on in practice, they had the walkie-talkie out. So, you know, to me, I don't know if Matt Patricia is going to be the ultimate play caller at the end of the day. On game day, I think that's a ways off, and we'll have to see in the preseason. But for sure, it looks like he's going to be the offensive coordinator, where, you know, he's in charge of scripting the practices and things like that, and what they're doing as far as plays. And so I thought that was a little bit different today. It was definitely a different feel. We'll have to see how much things change for tomorrow.
It's interesting. Now we have some roles somewhat defined, right? Now Joe Judge, we know, is the quarterback's coach. He'll be working with Mac all week long and you know, making sure he's set to go. And then you've got Matt Patricia, who looks like, as of right now, will be calling the plays. The Patriots would not be the only team in the NFL that has a separate quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. It happens often in the league. A lot of people are kind of just used to Josh McDaniels being the guy, the head coach of the offense. This is going to be a tweak. We'll see how it works. We'll see how it evolves. Let's talk about the offensive line. Trent Brown, back at left tackle. What else did you see up front with the big guys?
Yeah, so David Andrews is still out. He was sort of just in a T-shirt doing he's on PUP coming back from his shoulder injury. So, you know, one of the things that I definitely looked at first was, all right, what are they doing at left tackle and right tackle? Because there was a chance that the Patriots took a look at Trent Brown at left and Isaiah Wynn at right and decided that's not the direction we want to go. For training camp, we're going to flip them back. But that wasn't the case. Trent Brown was at left tackle. Cole Strange was at left guard. Ferentz was at center. Owenu was at right guard. And Wynn was at right tackle. People need to understand that the first 4 days through Saturday, it's part of the quote-unquote acclimation process. So, you know, very light on any sort of contact or any sort of pass rush. The pass rush really, when they were on the field, took about 2 or 3 steps and then stopped, which was obviously to the offense's advantage. But, you know, it was certainly notable that the Patriots seemed to be going ahead with Trent Brown as their left tackle and Isaiah Wynn as their right tackle.
Interesting. Now, I've got a question for you because we're at the very beginning of training camp here, and we've talked about possibly trying to move on from Isaiah Wynn. When do you think that no longer is an option, or they can push that until almost the first week of the season, Greg?
Yeah, I think that's a decision that could wait a very long time, and it might have to, because the Patriots might need a desperate team that either through injury or just watching their own team in training camp practice says, like, we're not good at left tackle or right tackle. You know, by moving Isaiah Wynn over to the right, at least now you're going to give, and I assume he's going to be there in the preseason, you're giving film where they've seen him on both sides, and that might help the trade process because, you know, as of right now, $10.4 million for one season for Isaiah Wynn for most teams is going to be pretty steep. So it's going to take some desperation, I think, and, you know, even some Patriots eating some of the money to move him. But I think you're right that it's something that could go to final cut downs, really, or even after that, because there's usually like 10, 11 days before the first game. Something could get done in that area. I don't think they need to rush it. I don't think they will. And quite frankly, the Patriots need somebody to emerge to make them feel comfortable that they can move on from Wynn. So that's, Justin Herron, Yadni Cajuste, or Andrew Stueber, the draft pick, who has yet to be cleared physically.
Speaking of emerging, we've talked about the third running back, the pass catching running back, as one of the needs for this team, right? One of the positions that need to pop. James White, Mike Reese wrote that, he's been walking with some kind of uncomfortable looking gait. I personally, as much as I love James White, I'm at the point, Greg, that I'm just not going to believe it until I see it. I don't know if he's going to play another down of regular season football again. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I just don't trust that. So one of the guys we've been looking at as a possibility is Pierre Strong, drafted obviously by the Pats in April. Pierre was limited. How do you think that pass catching running back position is going to work here over the next few weeks?
That's a good question. And if the first day is any judge, and it probably isn't, but very heavy on the veterans, Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson were pretty much the receiving backs out of the backfield when they were, and people need to understand today was entirely red zone work. And this is similar to what we saw last year, and we weren't sure what to make of it. Now we have more data. Now and Bill talked about it this morning. Basically, where the Patriots left off in their install in the offseason was they hadn't gotten to red zone, and probably there will be something tomorrow that they haven't gotten to. And they're going to do that now. So they used that time. It was all red zone today. A lot of Damian Harris, a lot of Ramondre Stevenson. I thought they looked good out of the backfield. A lot of J.J. Taylor. We've talked about it before, Nick. When you're a young player in the NFL, you cannot afford to miss practice time. Every day you miss practice, you are going to be behind. And so this definitely bears watching. How long is he going to be out? Is this just a day or two thing? Or are we talking, if it's upwards of a week, I think you can even start to talk about, I don't know if this is going to work for him his rookie year, sort of like we saw with James White, Shane Vereen when they came in as rookies, where they didn't get an opportunity right away.
Ty Montgomery an option there?
It could be. He was one of the guys who sort of stood out a little bit. I thought he had a good day today. He wears number 14. I would say if you looked at him, you would think of him more as a Debo type of guy. Like, he's really thick. He's well built. That's what sort of stood out when he walked out on the practice field. And then I thought he had a good day in practice. So he looks more like a wide receiver, definitely a gadget type guy. That's what he's done. He's been a running back. So, I think that if Pierre Strong can't get on the field and they feel like they need more options, I would say Ty Montgomery would be a guy that they look at.
All right, let's talk secondary. Marcus Jones, red contact jersey, I think is gone, right? He's ready to go after double shoulder surgery. Working with the cornerbacks or safeties, Greg, because I remember going back, Greg Cosell, right after the draft, you had him on the podcast, and he said Honey Badger, right? And not that he's going to be the Honey Badger, but he reminds him of the Honey Badger. Where was Jones lined up today, and how did he look?
Surprisingly, he was at slot cornerback. He did not work with the safeties today. That might be a case where the Patriots, we all know they're pretty stacked at safety. And a guy like Jabril Peppers isn't even out there yet. And it could be a case of Jonathan Jones isn't quite ready. So, hey, let's get a look at Marcus Jones at cornerback. He is going to be a multifaceted tool for them. I think that's pretty obvious. And so why not give him early reps where they're a little bit short? He has a lot. He did not take part in the offseason, so he has a lot of catching up to do in terms of what's going on defense and how he plays, and they need more data on him. And so I thought it was interesting that he was out there. I thought he did fairly well. The thing that stands out about him, Nick, is that he is small. He's not skinny. He's pretty thick, but man, he is small, and I don't know what his numbers were coming out of the combine, and maybe it was just this one rep, but they were doing sort of red zone, almost like, hey, the quarterback's going to throw it up in the corner. The cornerback's got to, get a jam and then play the ball. And I wasn't all that impressed with his vertical jump. It could have been a bad rep. I don't know, but I will say this: the dude is quick as hell. He is. What did Daniel Jeremiah? Quicker than a hiccup. He has that going on for him. So that's good for the slot. But I do think long term, I think he is a honey badger sort of multifaceted tool in terms of, he can line up basically anywhere.
I believe Daniel Jeremiah stole that from the great Jim Ross from the WWF, WWF, by the way. All right,
would know.
The rest of this, I would know that. I am the wrestling nerd of these two people talking to you right now. All right, let's look at the cornerback group. The top three guys, Shaun Wade was in the slot. Marcus Jones played behind him. How about the 1 and the 2 on the outside, Greg?
So it was Jalen Mills and Terrence Mitchell, sort of a continuation of the offseason. I don't know if that's a, big surprise. But then you had, Malcolm Butler was in the second group with the rookies, Jack Jones, Marcus Jones. So, that was definitely an interesting pairing. Juwan Williams, former, second round pick.
Yep.
He was in Scrubville with guys I never really heard of. I will say, though, that Juwan Williams had an interception today, a nice interception today in practice. So, that was nice, but he was definitely, he was probably looking around and being like, bruh, these are the guys I'm playing with? Really? Really?
He's doing the John Travolta from Pulp Fiction, the gift that's always going around where he's just like in the room, he's looking around like, what? Who am I with here? Out of the guys, right? So I think we know what to expect from Jalen Mills, good and bad. Out of the other guys, Greg, Terrence Mitchell, Wade, Jack Jones, Malcolm Butler. I won't include Marcus because this was his first practice today. And I know it's very limited and it's early, but is anybody sticking out to you in any kind of way out of those, rest of the guys group at cornerback?
Well, I will say to this point, and I thought today with it being all red zone, it was tough to really tell much of anything. With the second, a lot of the red zone work in the secondary is passing off guys, and so it's hard to tell. There was no sort of 7-on-7 period where it's just like, 1-on-1, just in the middle of the field, or or even one-on-one work, which you'll get a lot of cornerbacks versus wide receivers. Hey, the wide receivers get to make a move and none of that stuff. So it was hard to tell who stood out. But to this point, if you include the offseason, I think you would say, Jack Jones is a guy who has stood out among the group. But you could tell the Patriots like Mitchell for whatever reason. The Texans didn't want him back. I think the Patriots think they found a diamond in the rough there, but we'll have to see.
Fascinating too, because of course you have the other part of that story, right? Nick Caserio made the decision that it was not the guy in Houston and they didn't want him. If Belichick gets something out of Mitchell, it's kind of like a ha-ha, kind of snub the nose at Caserio. We got one over on you, Nick. You screwed that one up, my man. Let's talk about linebacker. That's another position that we've discussed an awful lot this offseason. We know Juwan Bentley is going to be there at the second level. Raekwon McMillan, we now know, is healthy. He's ready to go. He was out there today. What'd you see from the second level, Greg? And was there something interesting they did with Mack Wilson at one point?
Yeah, pretty much the second group. So Bentley and McMillan were the first group, and then it was Mack Wilson and Tavai were the second group. I didn't see a whole lot out of Cam McGrone in this practice. I mean, maybe I just missed him and I was watching something else. But Mack Wilson, in red zone sort of coverage situations, Bentley was not on the field, and it was Wilson and McMillan. And I think Bill was asked about McMillan this morning, and I think he singled out sort of his experience, which he does, and which he does have, and also sort of his quickness. And he's coming back from a knee injury, so that's tough to judge. But I do think it's a continuation of what we saw before his injuries. They really like Raekwon McMillan, and I think they're going to mix and match sort of their linebackers after that, in terms of Bentley against the run. Is Mack Wilson? Is it Cam McGrone? We'll have to see.
The McGrone thing is interesting because of all the pumping of the tires the Patriots did around draft time, saying, "Oh no, McGrone, he's pretty much our draft pick out of this draft," and he hasn't done much so far. And again, it's really early. Who knows? But he hasn't really been out there doing a whole ton. The question that I have when I hear you break it down so far, and again, the caveat is it's really, really early. But if you're going to roll out Mack Wilson on passing situations, that makes this defense pretty predictable at the second level. And you would imagine that offenses would be able to, especially in 2022, take advantage of that. When they see Juwan Bentley out there, they know the Patriots don't want Bentley in coverage. Can they get Bentley in coverage? And I wonder, therefore, Greg, is it possible that, Wilson ends up playing more than Bentley when we get into the season because of that predictability that you have when Juwan's out there? Or Belichick will say, screw it, I'll deal with the predictability on those plays. If they get Bentley in coverage, tip of the cap to them, but we just trust Bentley way too much.
Yeah, I think for now, considering the lack of experience that all the rest of the guys have in the scheme, I think it's Bentley's job to lose. But I do think the Patriots will look at it. I mean, you're hoping, if you're the Patriots, you're hoping that Mack Wilson at the end of the day isn't a one-trick pony and that he can be an every down type of guy. I think you're going to see, we've seen it at cornerback, we've seen it at safety, we've seen it at other positions. The Patriots are sort of game plan matchup people, and that, I think now we've never really seen it with inside linebacker. They've been pretty defined on how they do things, but now I think, you could get a situation where against certain teams, it's a lot of Mack Wilson and McMillan instead of, Bentley and McMillan, that sort of thing.
All right, let's jump to the offense. The name that I saw a lot on Twitter today was DeVante Parker. Sounded like he had a pretty good practice. What'd you see from the new man in town on the outside there?
Yeah, I mean, certainly looks good and in shape in that, the new number 1 jersey now that Nikhil is no longer around. He looks good on the field. When he was out there, he had a couple of really nice hookups with Mac Jones where he was able to use his body, his catch radius, which, we knew is the strength of his. I think I was a little bit surprised, and I think Mac Jones was as well, that, Parker got up, showed some nice vertical jumping ability on some contested catches, and that was impressive. It was good to see, Parker flex for the crowd and get them all into it, on his first day. I thought it was a really nice first day for DeVante Parker. And, if you're a Patriots fan, you're hoping, okay, just stay on the field, keep building that rapport with Mac Jones, because, at the end of the day, that's what's going to be important. And it could be ruined by, if he's had injury problems in the past, he pops a hammy and he's out for a week or two of practice. All of a sudden, the trust that he's building with Mac Jones has to be rebuilt. And that would be unfortunate.
Yeah, you just hope he stays healthy, because he does, absolutely no doubt about it, bring a different element to this offense, an element this offense has been looking for quite a long time. And if he can stay healthy and he gives that to this football team, their offense is much more versatile and difficult to defend, easily put, and it makes Mac Jones that much better. Another guy, I think, before we move on to like your big umbrella thoughts from today, I just want to, I know you pointed out Kendrick Bourne and you said his energy and enthusiasm. Is Kendrick Bourne like the media's guy? And I don't mean that he's like a binky for the media, but it seems like universally Kendrick Bourne is loved by the media more than anybody I can remember in recent memory with the Patriots. You guys love this dude.
Yeah, I just think, Nick, I don't think it's about us. I mean, we just see him a lot more than other people, and he's just one of those guys, and I think we even remarked about it last year, when he had a very similar play to last year. I remember almost like his first day where he caught this ball going out of bounds, almost the same play. They were probably installing red zone, and I remember I wrote about it. He was going out of bounds on the left sideline in the end zone. He caught it, and then he sort of like leaped up in the air and got all excited. He did almost the exact same thing today. And I just think he's just one of those guys when you watch, like, what did Brady used to say about Gronk? Like the guy never has a bad day. That's what it seems like with Kendrick Bourne. He always has a smile. He's always moving. He's always, enthusiastic, and that's big. Is especially in those lean days of training camp in the middle where people are dragging, to have a guy that you see go out with enthusiasm and make a play. I think it really does translate to the rest of the team, and so that's why we love Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, good vibes. He brings the good vibes, and he's also a pretty damn good football player. So
yep.
when you have the good vibes guy also be a good player that can help the offense, that's good. I'm not telling you he's Gronk, of course, but he is a good football player that can contribute. All right, so big picture thoughts, just kind of your big takeaways from what you saw today, Greg.
Teaching day, and I think that's going to go on for the next couple of days. I guess, my big takeaways would be like a lot of good vibes going around on the team. I thought there was a lot of good enthusiasm. I thought people were having fun. As Mac Jones said after, everybody has juice the first day. It's important to bring it every day. And I think the wise old man, Mac Jones, is right. And so it was good to see on the first day. I thought that things overall were sharp. Didn't see the ball on the ground a ton. I thought that both the offense and defense had their moments. I thought Mac Jones looked good. I will say, not to push back on sort of the narrative, but, looking through my binoculars and no pads today, it was just T-shirts. Mac Jones's physique didn't, it wasn't like he all of a sudden was an Adonis. Like, he didn't look all that different to me. Certainly a little bit more trim, but I thought I would see a little bit more muscle from what we've seen on Instagram and other places. And I don't know, maybe I was just being picky, and but I wasn't blown away by that. But I thought he had a good day, and I thought, he was enthusiastic. He was leading things. Matt Patricia seems to be in control of the offense. The Patriots are off and running.
Mac Jones talking about juice and needing juice every single day. I heard you talking about athletic greens last week, and you were talking about how athletic greens gives you the juice every day, it gives you the energy. And I just got my delivery of athletic greens in the mail this week, so I can't wait to dig into that. But tell the fine people that listen to this podcast about athletic greens and how it's helped kind of change your life in your sometimes wet blanket disposition. I don't know if it's helped that, but tell the people about athletic greens.
I will say, yeah. I mean, look, I relayed this story last week. 100% true. There's a Packers player that I used to cover, and he asked people on the internet. He's like, "What's the one nutritional supplement that you wish you would have used before?" And I looked through the mentions because I'm always looking for something to add to my repertoire, and person after person kept saying athletic greens. And I'm like, what the heck is this stuff? And I Googled it and I started reading it, and you find out with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole sourced ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, aging, all these things. And I completely agree. I've been using it for 3 weeks now. I have my routine. The first thing I do, even before I grab a cup of coffee, is they send you a little bottle, you put your water in there, you put in a scoop, you shake it up, and look, we all know these green juices, a lot of them don't taste very well. But I gotta say, this does not taste quote unquote healthy. It has a little bit of a mint towards the end. There's no aftertaste. There's none of this garbage that at the end after you swallow it, you're just like, oh, holy cow, what did I drink? It's very smooth. I love it. I mean, I can notice the difference, in sort of my energy level, my focus, consistency of, going to the bathroom and all that stuff. It helps you in so many different ways that, I've been blown away. And I know some of my family members heard my spot and they bought it and they're into it. Everybody needs to check this out. And, to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Bedard, Bedard. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Bedard to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Athletic Greens. Shout out to Greg Bedard's regularity. Woo, woo.
Exactly. That is very important. I'm not getting any younger, Nick.
No, none of us are, my man. And by the way, legitimately for a second, I just want to point out, check out Greg. If you haven't seen Greg's Twitter page today, I saw the tweet you sent out earlier today from where you were physically about a year ago to where you are now. And my man has lost almost like a complete human being. So, great job by you. It's great to see you get in better health. And it's awesome to see that this stuff has worked for you and you continue down that road. Let's talk about the three competitive positions. Okay. We've got cornerback, linebacker, and right tackle. Let's start with cornerback, Greg. Give me the lowdown on this position, contenders, favorites, dark horse. How you feeling?
Yeah, look, there's always competition in every camp, but to me, I boiled it down to I think these three spots, cornerback, linebacker, and right tackle are sort of, to me, where the biggest competition lies. And I think you have to start at cornerback because I think it's almost like a complete unknown field other than Jalen Mills, who we think will have a starting spot, and Jonathan Jones, whenever he gets back, will be the slot. But as far as like starting battery corner, I mean, you have, it could be Malcolm Butler, could be Terrence Mitchell, it could be Jack Jones. Probably won't be Sean Wade. He's been slot, this offseason and now first day in camp. Juwan Williams seems like he's, he was in Scrubville today. Seems like he's going to be off the rosterville pretty soon. The favorites for me, and when I wrote this, it was based off of off-season practices, Jalen Mills and Terrence Mitchell. My dark horse is Jack Jones. I don't think he's a huge dark horse. A lot of people have talked about him in the camp that he had the offseason. I'd say the heat is on Malcolm Butler, Juwan Williams, and Wade, even though Wade he doesn't belong on that list because I think he was a draft pick last year. They traded for him from the Ravens. I think he's here and he looks pretty good. And in my mind, I think at the end of the day, I think the two starting boundary cornerbacks for the Patriots in week 1, provided no injuries, is Jalen Mills and Jack Jones. I think they're going to win the job at the end of the day. And after the first day, I don't feel any worse about that. I think Jack Jones, once they get into more real camp, I think he's going to show out.
Tell you what, if Jack Jones starts this season boundary corner across from Jalen Mills and holds his water there, Bill Belichick did a pretty good job to nab that guy where he nabbed him. If he's going to be, a starting outside corner day 1, season 1, you might feel a little bit better about that pick immediately. Off the ball linebacker, obviously contenders. We've run through the list before, Greg. I'll run through it again. Bentley, McMillan, Wilson, McGrone, Tavai, and Langhi.
Easy for you to say.
your favorites out of that list, Greg.
Yeah, I wrote that. I wrote this last night, and it was backed up on the field. Juwan Bentley and Raekwon McMillan right now are the favorites to be your starters at off the ball linebacker. I feel good about at that point. My dark horse is McGrone. I mean, he's sort of like an X factor, and sometimes when you get these kids who are coming back from major injuries, the team sort of brings them along very slowly because they're afraid they're going to push it. They're going to try to make up for what they missed last year. So maybe they're sort of like holding him back. That I've seen it happen before because I do think he's talented. But I do think that, the heat is on Mack Wilson, who is in the final year of his deal after being traded for the Browns. They could cut him and get $2.45 million. I think they're going to give him a real chance to show what he can do and then sort of make a decision. I don't think it's coming anytime soon. And then Tavai and Langhi are interesting because Jelani Tavai is a guy that Matt Patricia basically brought from Detroit with him. So he has he has an endorser on the coaching staff who happens to be very close with the head coach / director of football operations. Bill Belichick. And then Langhi is a guy who, ever since he was a undrafted free agency here way back in 2017, they've always liked him. He had the car accident, and then that sort of derailed his chance here. Went to New York, played really well there. It's an interesting cast of characters. Everybody brings something different. I think it's going to be a lot of trial and error during camp in the preseason. But at the end of the day, I still think Bentley and McMillan are out there in week 1.
What are we feeling like on the right side? We know Trent Brown looks like he's going to be the guy on the left side, along with Cole Strange, blind side of Mac Jones. Right tackle, we got Wynn, we got Herron, we got Cajuste, and we've got Stueber, who is still not out on the field. Stueber. So let's run through right tackle and what do you think about the big overweight guy they'll put on that side?
Yeah, I think that and really you're looking, when you talk about possibly moving Isaiah Wynn off the roster and say you keep Justin Herron and Yadni Cajuste, you have to be comfortable that when push comes to shove, one of them can play left tackle, because Trent Brown is not exactly an Iron Man. And we'll have to see. I mean, it would be nice if those two guys got like real chances to show what they can do. Because if you're the Patriots, how are you not enticed, especially after watching Isaiah Wynn get his 5th-year option picked up, and then he basically went on vacation the last 2 off seasons? How do you want that guy around anymore, as part of your program? Not that I think he's a bad guy or even a bad player, but that's just not how things are done around here. And that's a lot of chunk of change, $10.4 million that they instantly pick up if they can find somebody to trade him to. That money's guaranteed. They can't just cut him. I think those guys are going to get real shots. I think it's going to become apparent that it's time to move on, even if they have to take a cut rate deal to get rid of Wynn, to get the cap space back. I'm going to go, at the end of the day, I think Wynn is traded, and I think Cajuste is your starting right tackle, and I think Herron is your swing tackle.
Look at you, Yadni Cajuste, starting right tackle. Isaiah Wynn out of town. Greg Bedard taking shots across the bow. Well, that'd be interesting. It'd be fascinating. Who would have thought the offensive line to start 2022, if that is how it plays out, that it would be Trent Brown, Cole Strange, David Andrews, and then, you've got who am I blanking on? Come on, right guard. Come on, Nick. Here we go. Shaq's gone.
Oh, Owenu.
Thank you. Owenu, and then you've got Cajuste at your right tackle. Interesting offensive line. A little bit different than we thought it would be when 2021 season ended. Let's jump to the BostonSportsJournal.com member question of the day. The question is, Nick, how did you forget about Owenu? I apologize thoroughly. Let's jump to the second question, which Greg told me he would find one.
Yeah, so I think I've used this guy before. Pat's in North Attleboro. He's always commenting on BSJ. He took issue, and I'm sure other people did. I've pointed this out a couple times in the last week. Like, he says, why is there an obsession with Cole Strange being undersized and not strong enough? Joe Tooney, 6'5" at 304, 28 bench, and basically Cole Strange, 6'5", 305, 31 bench. All right, so here's the thing. You could put up all the measurables you want. And trust me, I've been next to Cole Strange in person. I've seen him. He's surprisingly big. But I'm just telling you, in my opinion, from covering the NFL over 20 years, maybe he could bench a lot. That's fine. But what I'm talking about is not I think he's plenty strong up top. Where I worry about him at guard as a rookie coming from UT Chattanooga, that level, and also what I saw at a Senior Bowl when he struggled with guys like Travis Jones out of UConn, is does he have enough in the butt, in the lower level, the calves, the thighs, the butt? Because more than anything at guard, like if he was playing tackle, that'd be fine. But at guard, you got to be able to anchor and hold up against, like Christian Barmore. Like, that guy's a freaking moose. And like, I couldn't hold up to him, me and my skinny legs and skinny butt. Like, so that's what I'm looking at. It has nothing to do about his arm length, has nothing to do with his ability to bench press. It has to do with his lower body strength, and I have questions about it. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying that is a question I have. It's something I'll be watching once they go to one-on-one drills, and I have a feeling that he's going to struggle a bit, but I think in time he's going to be a good player, especially after, a bunch of squats and deadlifts and stuff like that, over the course of his career. But for right now, yeah, I'm a little bit worried that he's a little light in the britches to go up against these NFL defensive tackles. And I think it's legit.
We're talking about the badunkadunk. We're talking about the caboose. We're talking about the tuk-tuk. We're talking about the ass, North Attleboro. We're talking about the ass. And when you are, you could be 210.
You got a measurement for that ass?
Got a big old back? What do you got? Got a big old booty back there? What's going on there, Coach Strange?
I have no doubts about Mike Owenu's caboose. Let me just say that. No questions about that.
His badunkadunk is the anchor you're looking for if you're looking for good badunkadunk. Felger's really the expert in badunkadunks, isn't he? He started that years ago with Larry Fitzgerald's tuk-tuk. He talked about Fitzgerald's tookie.
I think so, yeah.
But it's all about weight distribution. Like, I'm a fight fan, and Greg talks about that sometimes, UFC fan and stuff. You'll see certain fighters who are like, welterweights, and they're fighting at, 170. And a dude at 170 can be all up top, muscular, and his legs are tiny, and his calves are tiny, and his quads are not thick. And then you'll see another dude who's fighting in the same weight class at 170, and he's the exact opposite. His quads are huge, his calves are huge, and he's not as thick up top. It's like Saquon Barkley has the most ridiculous-sized quads in the history of the NFL. It doesn't mean he's 350 pounds. It's weight distribution. And so if a guy is the same height and same weight, it doesn't mean he has the same exact body form. It's not how it works. Mm-hmm. If you put on weight, every time someone puts on weight, you distribute it differently, right? Some people put weight in the padunkadunk. Some people put weight in the side luggage there, right? The love handles. Some people put weight in just the belly. You see dudes that have a flat chest and a big old gut. You see other dudes that distribute it differently. That's what it's all about. So if you could take one thing away from this podcast today, it's pay attention to the badunkadunk, the caboose, the tuk-tuk when you talk offensive line. And Greg is here to tell you. And he knows about weight distribution over the last year. If there's anybody that could tell you about putting weight on, losing weight, it's Greg Bedard.
Baby got back.
Greg Bedard, Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles, brought to you by our friends at Athletic Greens, the all-in-one nutritional insurance for your body that has over 7,000 five-star reviews. Everybody be good, be safe, be healthy, and we'll talk to you next time.